really depends on the area, on the country. You can't generalize it. And there's a huge investment potential and opportunities in many African countries.
Welcome to The Smarter E Special, a podcast miniseries recorded live at the Smarter E Europe 2022 in Munich. It was time again for everyone working on making the new energy world a reality to meet in person. And of course, I wanted to be part of the conversation as well. So I traveled to Munich and spent 3 days at the exhibition. I was able to secure some quality time with various experts and sit down with them for a one-on-one chat on the latest industry developments. These are our conversations. Welcome to the fifth and last episode of our mini-series here recorded live at the Intersolar Europe in Munich. Well, after my last interview, while I talk, it's still the second day here of the exhibition, I actually took a walk and I ended up in Hall B6 all the way in the end. And what we have there is the startup area. So lots of cool startups with various cool business ideas or innovations in the area of the new energy world. And one that struck me really the most was the Solarbakery. So imagine basically a standard shipping container that you can ship anywhere in the world, and what it is a bakery in a box. So once it's in its destination, you can open it up. Inside is a fully mountable PV system that can be mounted on the rooftop and that then can power a bakery inside the container. And that container can produce, I think, up to 3,000 breads per day for the local population, which is an insane number. So that's really cool. And what's particularly interesting about it is that the shipping container, the Solarbakery, comes with an impact business model. So it's very different from what the business models and the business use cases we usually discuss here at the Smarter E, which basically means what they're aiming for is a triple bottom line. So they put impact first, it may be ecological or social impact. And nevertheless, they are highly successful with it. So I was really intrigued by that story and I thought there's lots to learn for us here. So I made sure that although very busy, I was able to get him here into the podcast booth, the founder of the Solarbakery, Simon Zimmermann. Welcome, Simon.
You're welcome, and thank you for the invitation.
So let's start with the why. This seems to be such a unique project and also such a niche. How did you come up with this idea and what's the relevance behind it?
It was actually totally driven by impact and demand. The story of Solarbakery actually begins in the Congo, where 10 years ago I was with my friend and partner who is Congolese, and he always had the dream of improving the situation in his home country, Congo. So we decided we're gonna start an educational project, build a school, but not as a traditional charity project, just based on donations. We wanted to create a social business that can be financed self-sufficiently, basically. So we looked around in the Congo, what do people need, where's the demand, what can we produce and sell locally, to create revenues for that school. And at every corner we looked, we saw bread, because that's just the basic food that everybody eats, everybody likes. And but we only saw like industrial bread from big industrial bakeries, and we thought, okay, maybe that we can create a better product. So, okay, first decision, bakery. Second decision was, let's create a mobile bakery. Maybe we have to switch locations. So then we're safe for the future. So we built our first containerized bakery in Stuttgart, in Germany. Then we shipped it to the Congo, and we were actually surprised by the big success, as you just mentioned, producing 3,000 breads per day. We created many jobs, employments, created a distribution system. We have more than 100 women in the Congo who sell the bread all around the city, and also made a lot of revenues. So we realized, okay, that the potential in the Congo, that's also in many other countries, in Africa, but all around the world.
Now I have to get into the details there already. If you said you have a couple of hundred women, is that per container or is that in general?
That's just with one container bakery in the Congo.
You basically create jobs for 100 women. That is amazing.
Absolutely. It even surprised us because we didn't do a lot of marketing there. That it was, basically the reputation of our bakery just the word spread around the city, and they came to us. They wanted to sell our bread because they noticed that customers like our high quality bread. So more and more came and wanted to sell our bread.
Now, the point here is the business model seems to be that high quality bread. You do not need PV for that, right?
Yes. But actually in those countries where we want to offer fresh bread, you do need a sustainable solution, because the solution that's at the moment used is either you have to chop down a lot of wood, rainforests, to fire the ovens which are powered with wood, or, which is actually the most popular solution in the global south, is using diesel generators. All the bakeries, all the small businesses there, they burn huge amounts of diesel just to power their businesses. And we thought, okay, the technology is there, we have to create a better product, a better solution. And that's actually the moment I got in contact with my now co-founder and partner, Thorsten Schreiber, founder of Africa Green Tech, and together we developed the Solarbakery.
When talking impact and triple bottom line, I mean, you really hit it off there, right? So you do not only create an ecological impact, that means you replace traditional bread making, not in the sense of traditional craft, but in the sense of diesel-powered, wood-powered. On the other hand, you create jobs, so you also have a social impact. And you probably I don't know, I mean, the bread they have probably was healthy before, so I'm not sure if it's a health impact, but at least it's high-quality bread. Now, I'm sure that the pricing of the bread also is geared towards the social impact. So I assume you do not make the biggest profit with selling the bread. At least that's probably not your intention. So does it still cover all the costs you need, or do you need to work with partners or foundations?
It does cover the costs. For example, in the Congo, it was conceptualized as a social business. And even with the most basic kind of products, we do cover the costs over there. Now with the new solution, the Solarbakery, first we decrease the operating costs because we're using free solar energy. Of course, the initial investment is a bit higher, but in the long term, it definitely pays off. And in the Congo, we just wanted to produce the local, most basic bread just to feed the population, basically. Now, in other countries, we also see a growing middle class. So we do still want to offer the basic, for example, baguette, which is very popular, but also offer a bit more high-priced products for the middle class, maybe in areas with diplomats and tourists who just want some fresh croissant.
So that means you will have like a financial transfer then from, let's say, like the inner city middle class solar bakeries towards the more rural bakeries covering the basic needs of the rural population?
Exactly, because the solar bakery can produce big variety of different products, just basic and cheap but good breads, but also more specialized products, croissant, pain au chocolat, something which has a higher margin.
So I think there's a couple of questions I have. I know, for example, in other events, I talked to not similar projects, but related projects. I know there's SolarWorks, for example. That's a startup that brings mini-grid solutions to rural population, I think in the Sahel zone. And it actually connected with your project. You started a partnership with Africa Green Tech. They ship a container storage solution, electrical storage solution to communities and also create a local mini-grid, sort of. But there it's not about powering the local workshops. So I think the solar probably is a little bit more powerful. They have the storage. I think they can cover up to 30 workshops or something like that, or 4,000 people with a container solution. And then I know there's another really interesting project, Boreal Light. They use PV for desalination, and then they work in a similar direction as you. I think they connect it to a school and then enable the school to actually use the salty water of the desalination for fishing. So they create produce and they create a revenue. But what they all say is that it's super important not to sit in Berlin, for example, come up with your project plans and then go to the Congo, to the Sahel zone. But you really need to actually create the product with the local community to get the buy-in. So what did your process look like there?
That's exactly the bottom-up approach that we started with. We didn't come up with the concept in Germany. We went to the Congo, talked to the people, to the local people, to other NGOs, enterprises there on the ground to see what the demand is, what the market looks like, what people actually need and use, and where to start. So that's the approach that we will stick with for the future. I was just in Senegal the last couple of weeks. Also to do this bottom-up approach, to talk to people, what do they need, what are the local ingredients that we can use, because that's something very important to us, using local, regional, raw ingredients, producing breads that the people like. Also, of course, experimenting a little bit, offering something new that they don't know, but still, we want to offer that which the people like.
So really work with the local population, co-create your product at least halfway with the local population. What are some of the challenges you run into when developing a project in Congo? Do you have like import challenges? Do you have logistics challenges? I mean, at the moment, everybody trying to ship a container basically faces a nightmare, right? Specifically when coming as a startup, I mean, you have a short runtime and 1 year of shipping delay could break your neck. So what kind of challenges are you facing?
That's the funny thing, that we started in the most chaotic country on earth. DRC, the Congo, is a very difficult country in terms of politics.
So exactly in what kind of terms? Because of the internal struggle and political turbulences, or?
Yes, as you mentioned, logistics wasn't easy in the Congo. Of course, there's a lot of corruption that you have to stay away from. But if you don't open up your wallet, sometimes you just have to wait. So it takes more time. You have to deal with the right people. Sometimes avoid people that you don't want to deal with. Really get to know the people you're working with. What are their intentions? Yeah, what is their? Do they have a long-term perspective, or do they just want to make a small, short, quick money?
So that sounds to me like you really depend on having a local partner that is involved in to all those in between the lines politics, no?
Absolutely, yeah. For example, in Senegal, we already have a lot of people on the ground with a very strong network, strong partners. That's definitely what you need to enter those markets. And I would say all the challenges that are even possible we face in the Congo, and we still managed to set up a bakery there. So now, with this experience, our next steps, for example, we want to set up a bakery chain in Senegal. I think we're prepared for those kind of situations.
So you face the toughest challenges, and from here on, everything else will be a piece of cake. But is that so? I mean, that's like a typical European thing to talk of Africa as if it was one country, which is so much is not. So can you actually really take the experience from Congo and apply it in Senegal, or is it like starting all over again?
As you said, Africa is very, the countries are very different from each other. I think we can use a lot of the experiences and challenges that we faced in Congo just to have that awareness, like what might be difficult, what might happen. Senegal, of course, is a different situation. A lot of challenges that we faced in Congo, we probably won't face there. There will be other challenges, but we're prepared for the worst, basically.
All right. So maybe what would be super interesting to hear from you, because a lot of the things you talk about, I think, applies for non-impact projects as well. Whoever wants to go to Africa with their PV solution or develop projects jointly with African partners probably will face similar logistic problems, will have to deal with the same, political turbulences in some of the countries. But what's your insight generally into the industry, impact or non-impact? What's your take on PV, on renewables in Congo, in Senegal, in the different regions of Africa?
My take is that I think from a European perspective or even Germany, there's still a lot of hesitation to invest in Africa because of the reputation, poverty, corruption, all this. But it really depends on the area, on the country. You can't generalize it. And there's a huge investment potential and opportunities in many African countries. And PV is basically an enabler for many business opportunities there. We use it to power our bakeries. Other people use it to power water pumps for agriculture, for many types of business ideas. So I think PV is actually a big enabler to make use of that big potential in those African countries.
I guess, where it comes into play is really like those off-grid solutions, right? Because I guess a lot of areas that are not electrified can get electrified very easily that way. And I would assume some of the regions, some of the rural projects also leapfrog us in the sense that where we here in Germany have a huge problem fighting with the regulations about V2G or selling my solar power to the neighbor next door. I guess probably, depending which country you're in Africa, those are not problems you run into.
Exactly, yeah. There's more flexibility, not those strict regulations. Of course, there are some regulations, but not comparable to here.
So how does the boost for renewables and specifically solar here in Europe affect the various African markets? Does it have an effect?
Absolutely. I would say that the awareness in many African countries is growing, what you can actually do with photovoltaic, with solar energy. Some people, whether in Europe, in Germany or over there, can't imagine how much power you can create with these regenerative solutions. In Africa, many people are just used to diesel generators. You put in diesel, you get energy out of the generator. That's what they're used to. That's what they know. PV for some people is new. They can't really imagine it. So we see ourselves with the Solarbakery as someone who shows what's possible. We want to spread awareness, what you can actually produce with solar power. In our case, it's a very bread, that's a thing you can take into your hand, in your mouth. You can actually taste what comes out of this solar power. And I think, concerning your question, there's also a growing awareness of product quality. And to be honest, I talk to a lot of people there, and they are starting to have the awareness that there are some suppliers, be it from China, Asia, who can't really keep up with European quality. So I like that, like the German and European solar sector is increasingly coming up with new solutions, new products, because they have a good reputation all around the world, and people are starting to realize that the product quality of European, German suppliers is much better, lasts longer, creates more value, more impact.
That, of course, is music in the ears of European producers. But how about actually producing technical components or machines for the Solarbakery, or specifically then for the PV bit of the Solarbakery directly in Africa?
There is probably still a long way to go. We're making the first step. Actually, right now, we're setting up a production site in Dakar, the capital of Senegal, where we will be producing our containers for the Solarbakery. We will use shipping containers, modify them. We have patented extra rooms which you can pull out of the container to increase the size. We will assemble the whole Solarbakery in Dakar in Senegal to create more value locally, and then spread from there into other African countries. I think in terms of like the high-tech solutions, inverters, battery storage systems, Africa still has a long way to go. But once the awareness is there, that with this kind of technology you can create great opportunities, I think it will increase. There will be more investments, more technical development, and maybe in the future more African suppliers for this high-tech technology.
I know, probably not in your project, but related projects. I'm not quite sure which one it was, whether it was a Boreal Light or one of these projects also really heavily invest in actually upskilling the local labor force, so that they really school locals in installing modules and setting up modules instead of having somebody fly in and fly out, but to really create value on the ground. How important is that for projects such as yours?
That's absolutely mostly important. And with Africa Green Tech, our partner who's setting up this production site in Senegal, we also want to install a training center there where we will train technicians, bakers, people who do the maintenance for our solar bakeries. We will use this location in Dakar, Senegal, also to get people from other African countries to come to Senegal, get the training there, and then move back into their home countries to do the maintenance for the solar bakeries there. But yes, we definitely want to develop with the local population, not just fly in expertise from Germany and then go back. We want to really develop it there on the ground.
Which, of course, is something that ideally the whole market on the long run will benefit from. So maybe we circle back to the business model. Maybe you can give us still a little bit more insights and also tell us where you're headed with it.
We have basically 3 pillars in our business model. First, we want to operate these bakeries ourselves, create a brand in areas where we have people on the ground, where we can actually manage bakery chains. An example would be in Senegal, where we plan to introduce about 30 bakeries around the country and manage them ourselves. In other areas around the world, we're getting requests, for example, South America, Paraguay, Asia, India, Australia, all around the world. But there are areas where we just don't have the experience, don't know the market that well. So in this case, the second pillar of the business model would come into action, and that's actually selling the whole fully functional container ready to go. Of course, we would help with the setup, help with the training, but then it's up to the operator to run the bakery.
It's so fascinating because you have such a particular solution, but because you hit a niche so strongly, I mean, it's amazing that the response you get and the way you're able to scale this project. Because I know, like being in other formats, talking to impact startups, sometimes they have a singular project that maybe was financed also by the kids, and then they somehow get stuck in that country, and it never grows over like 1 or 2 satellite projects. But to hear that really the amount of requests you get and the regions you'll be active in, that's really fascinating.
Even for us, it's fascinating. I mean, we had our first public launch last fall at an impact festival, and we also did a financing round. We used crowd investing to raise 500,000 euros from many small-time investors. But the publicity this campaign created was amazing, and it spread. So we had a lot of press, feedback, interviews, and even we were kind of overrun and surprised how much interest it created.
Well, it really is a compelling idea and business model, so kudos to that. What I would like to know is that some people I talk to, they also have the theory that Europe going fully renewable, going fully electric, also has an effect on the long run on the regions that we might be sourcing clean energy or clean hydrogen from, in the sense that plants built, for example, in the MENA region to desalinate water, to create hydrogen, to create clean energy, can just be scaled up a little bit more and then also supply the local region, the local population, and thus boost decarbonization. So do you think that is a valid theory? Like, do you see that happening on the ground, that Europe's decarbonization really affects the regions it's in contact with or it sources clean energy and products from?
I would say it's true, even though in the mindset, Europe is still far away from Africa, even though it's really not that far. I think Europe and like going carbon neutral would be a great accelerator also for the global south to go this way, because there is kind of like if it works here and it's viable, of course people will see that and will start changing their ways as well. And if then Europe also sees the investment potential in the global south, I think these kind of solutions will start spreading more over there as well.
I think that's very important because it's always one of the counter arguments towards some people who still spend time and energy on arguing against decarbonization or going fully renewable. It's like, oh, you just create a solution in Europe, you'll end up in a very expensive hydrogen island here in Europe and the rest of the world doesn't care. I think, no, it will have an effect on other regions in the world as well, and a positive effect, hopefully. So thanks a lot, Simon, for joining me here. So it's been super interesting to hear like how many goals at the same time you can reach actually by combining PV just with a little bit more than just putting a PV there. You combine it with a bakery, you create jobs, you create awareness. On the long run, you even like upskill the local workforce to be able to use that skill then to set up other PV panels, not just for the Solarbakery. So that's such an interesting use case. And it's also really interesting to see that as an impact business, you can scale rapidly, because I think a lot of people always, they still focus on a for-profit business because they think that's the only way to really persist in the market and have more than just one or two projects. And no, I mean, that really is a proof that the future, hopefully, is more of an impact economy than the economy as we know it. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Wow, that already was the last and final episode of our small 5-part mini-series recorded live here at the Smarter E Europe in Munich. If you want to dive even deeper, of course, you can listen either to our regular podcast or, of course, show up at the Smarter E Europe 2023. So make sure to mark it in your calendar, and next time you're part of the conversation too. And if you want to find out more specifically about innovative solar projects around the world, then, of course, visit Intersolar Europe, the world's leading exhibition for the solar industry. You can find all the information about the exhibition online at intersolar.de.